The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Georgia submits an official application for Georgia's EU membership. Georgia, Ukraine and Moldova accession to the EU must be accelerated. Former Prime Minister of Georgia from the ruling party Georgian Dream, Mamuka Baghdadze stated. We welcome the decision to apply for Georgia's EU membership and offer maximum support to the government. Former Prime Minister of Georgia from the ruling party Georgian Dream, Giorgi Gakharia stated. This is the historical chance for Georgia to reunite with its European family. This chance has been brought by the Russian aggression, heroism of the Ukrainian people and the European awakening. Missing out on this chance would mean treason. Former Prime Minister of Georgia from the former ruling party United National Movement, Nika Gilauri stated. Yes, this is the Checkpoints, authored and presented by me. I'm Elena Banchilashvili, and the Checkpoints team has worked hard to make this program interesting for you. The Paris Grammy Museum removed the wax figure of Russian President Vladimir Putin in protest against his invasion of Ukraine and after it was damaged by visitors over the weekend. The statue, which was created in 2000, was moved to a warehouse until further notice, and the museum is considering replacing it with a statue of Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. Today, it is no longer possible to present a character like him. For the first time in the museum's history, we're withdrawing a statue because of historical events currently underway, Museum Director Yves Delamot told France Bleu Radio. Over the weekend, the statue had suffered attacks from visitors and was looking disabled, he said. Given what has happened, we and our staff do not want to have to fix his hair and appearance every day, Delamot said. A museum spokesman said it was not clear under what circumstances the statue might return. Asked who might now replace Putin in the empty spot between the statues of US President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping, Delamot said it might be Ukraine's Zelensky. Maybe President Zelensky will take his place. He has become a hero for having resisted and for not fleeing his country. He could perfectly well take his place among the great men of history and today, he said. While it is easy to remove the Putin statue from the museum, it takes time to take Putin down from the war scene. The aggressor continues his war in Ukraine. Every night, people around the civilized world close their eyes with one question on their minds. Will Ukraine stand one more night of oppression with no rules, no morality, and bombs, bombs, bombs? This weekend, the hard and inspirational speech by Antony Blinken highlighted once again that the West stands strong and united and ready to support Ukraine.
President Putin may have assumed that the United States and our allies were bluffing when we warned of massive, unprecedented consequences. But, as President Biden likes to say, big nations can't bluff. The United States doesn't bluff, and President Putin has gravely miscalculated. As President Biden made clear last night, this is President Putin's war. This isn't the Russian people's war. It's becoming clearer by the day that the Russian people oppose it. Members of the Russian military oppose it and had no idea what they were being sent to do. And now the Russian people will suffer the consequences of their leaders' choices. So, my message to the people of Russia, if they're even able to hear it, as the Kremlin cracks down even harder on media outlets reporting the truth, my message is that we know many of you want no part of this war. You, like Ukrainians, like Americans, like people everywhere, want the same basic things. Good jobs, clean air and water, the chance to raise your kids in safe neighborhoods, to send them to good schools, to give them better lives than you had. How in the world does President Putin's unprovoked aggression against Ukraine help you achieve any of these things? How is it going to make your lives better? The economic costs that we've been forced to impose on Russia are not aimed at you. They're aimed at compelling your government to stop its actions, to stop its aggression.
The coordinated answer to this aggression that comes from the West is truly unprecedented. Every day we read news of businesses, countries, and international organizations joining their efforts against Russia in support of Ukraine, just to name a few headlines. H&M has announced it is temporarily suspending all sales in Russia due to the invasion of Ukraine. The EU agreed to ban 7 Russian banks from SWIFT. Shell sells Russian investments due to the Ukraine conflict. Malta holds golden passports to Russians and Belarusians. MasterCard blocks transactions from Russia. Canada bans all crude oil imports for Russia. Switzerland forgoes Swiss neutrality and adopts the same sanctions as the EU against Russia. UNWTO considers its members' request for Russia's suspension. The World Bank stops all programs in Russia and Belarus with immediate effect following the Russian invasion of Ukraine and what it calls hostilities against the people of Ukraine. Georgian businesses also continue to show their solidarity to Ukraine and its people.
Georgian companies are becoming more active to provide aid to Ukraine and support the country as it defends itself from Russian invasion. Enterprise Georgia has launched a program Produce for Ukraine. As part of the campaign, several Georgian companies have already provided products, which will be sent to Ukraine, while the other part will be delivered to the Ukrainian citizens in Georgia. We are grateful to the following companies for support: GPR Nuts, Berta, Kampa, Kula, Cleantech, Kharkiv. Furthermore, we are glad that many more Georgian companies have already expressed their readiness to help the Ukrainian people and will soon provide their products. We will keep updating the status of the project and information about the companies that have provided their assistance, Enterprise Georgia notes in its Facebook post.
As you know, our agency is a front runner in entrepreneurship, and we have a lot of companies who are manufacturing different goods. So we wanted to start a company called Produce for Ukraine to help our Ukrainian friends. And now what we are doing is we are mobilizing and coordinating all the humanitarian aid that Georgian companies are willing to take to help our Ukrainian friends. So even yesterday we had received a lot of products from our companies, which we are very thankful and grateful for. We have received different types of juice, hygienic appliances. Also, we received hazelnuts, walnuts, and different types of foods. And from today, we are expecting it even more. We do have a special form where all companies that want to participate in the campaign can fill out the form. Georgian companies like Gefferini, they helped us with 12,000 different kind of shoes. Also, we are working with the restaurants. We saw a group with its subsidiary companies like Wendy's, Smart, and Dunkin'. They're creating 50 Georgian lari vouchers for our Ukrainian tourists who are now living in different hotels in Georgia, so they're able to visit the restaurants as well. And this campaign will be continuous. It's not gonna stay here, even though we all hope that this war will end very soon. Still, I think that post-crisis humanitarian problems will be there, so our campaign will not stop here. It's not just 1 week or 1 month, it's going to continue. And we are very grateful for all the companies that are participating, and we want to say that if there are any companies who want to help, our forum is there, our team is here to assist you, to guide you how you can help our Ukrainian friends today, which are in need.
The pharmaceutical company PESPE has allocated $200,000 worth of medicines and first aid items to support the Ukrainian people. PESPE expresses solidarity with Ukraine. We sent $200,000 worth of medicines and first aid items to Ukrainian people free of charge. Glory to Ukraine, the company declares in the statement. The company ICR, which represents international brands of shoes, clothes, accessories and furniture, will transfer 2% of its income received through this month in support of Ukrainian people. According to Kakha Khazaradze, chairman of the supervisory board of the company, the amount will exceed 150,000 gelari, and if necessary, the assistance will continue in April. The company decided to transfer 2% or 150,000 gelari to Ukrainian aid fund in March. If necessary, this will be continued in April. At this time, Ukrainian flags will appear on all 100 of our facilities. I call on all business representatives to take a similar step and contribute to the fight for freedom, said Kakha Khazaradze. Hotel Episode offers free accommodation to Ukrainian tourists staying in Georgia. Hotel Episode expresses solidarity and support to Ukrainian people. In active cooperation with the Georgian National Tourist Administration, the hotel is ready to provide living space free of charge Ukrainian citizens who are in Georgia and need assistance, reads the company's statement. Non-ferrous metal production facility Rich Metals, Georgia transferred 100,000 gelari to Red Cross in support of Ukraine as a sign of solidarity. The company posted relevant news on its official Facebook page. Tbilisi State University offers various types of assistance to Ukrainian citizens staying in Georgia. Ukrainian students studying at Tbilisi State University and staying in Georgia will be offered free accommodation at the student dormitory. In addition, they will receive scholarships during the spring semester of the current academic year. Those Ukrainian students who arrived in Georgia on vacation and failed to return to their homeland due to the hostilities in Ukraine will also receive assistance. They will be offered free accommodation at Tbilisi State University dormitory. Ukrainian citizens staying in Georgia will be able to join Tbilisi State University's short-term certificate courses free of charge. We also offer psychological assistance to all Ukrainian citizens that will be provided by highly qualified specialists, the statement of Tbilisi State University reads. The company Bolt expresses its solidarity with Ukraine, and according to the information published by the company in the social media, it has already transferred €1 million in favor of Ukrainian people. To support the Ukrainian people, we will transfer 5% from each Bolt order. We will be able to give €5 million over the next 2 weeks. The first €1 million is already transferred, the company notes. Wine and spirit producing company Charles Rouleau will issue a special collection of 10,000 identical NFTs inspired by Ukraine fighting for its freedom. All the income from each NFT sold will be donated to the official cryptocurrency account of Ukraine. Each NFT serves as a digital medal of our brand in remembrance that we were on the right side of the history together. Glory to Ukraine, reads the company's statement on the Facebook page. Georgian clothing and accessories manufacturing company LaQuash will fully transfer the money received through the products sold on the company's website in support of Ukraine. According to the information posted by the company on the Facebook page, 465 products are currently sold on their website, with a total value of over 27,000 gelari. LaQuash declares that unity has never been as important as it is today. Our company has always been on the side of unity and peace. The strength and courage of Ukrainian people are an example for us. Glory to Ukraine, the company says.
Ratings agencies Fitch and Moody's downgraded Russia by 6 notches to junk status, saying Western sanctions threw into doubt its ability to service debt and would weaken the economy. Fitch downgraded Russia to B from BBB and placed the country's ratings on Rating Watch negative. Moody's, which last week had flagged the possibility of a downgrade, also cut the country's rating by 6 notches. Fitch said the only other precedent to such a large 6-notch downgrade on a single sovereign entity was South Korea in 1997. The severity of international sanctions in response to Russia's military invasion of Ukraine has heightened macro-financial stability risks, represents a huge shock to Russia's credit fundamentals, and could undermine its willingness to service government debt, Fitch said in a report. Fitch said that US and EU sanctions prohibiting any transactions with the Central Bank of Russia would have a much larger impact on Russia's credit fundamentals than any previous sanctions, rendering much of Russia's international reserves unusable for FX intervention. The sanctions could also weigh on Russia's willingness to repay debt, Fitch warned. President Putin's response to put nuclear forces on high alert appears to diminish the prospect of him changing course on Ukraine to the degree required to reverse rapidly tightening sanctions. Fitch said it expects further ratcheting up on sanctions on Russian banks. Moody's said on Thursday the scope and severity of the sanctions have gone beyond Moody's initial expectations and will have material credit implications. The sanctions imposed by Western countries will also markedly weaken Russia's GDP growth potential relative to the ratings agency's previous assessment of 1.6%, Fitch said. Russia has responded to the sanctions with a range of measures to shore up its economic defenses and retaliate against Western restrictions. It hiked its main lending rate to 20%, banned Russian brokers from selling securities held by foreigners, ordered exporting companies to buttress the ruble, and said it would stop foreign investors selling assets. The government also plans to tap its National Wealth Fund, a rainy day cushion, to help counter sanctions, Reuters reported. Meanwhile, Russia's stock market remains shut down. The ruble is worth less than a penny, and Western businesses are fleeing. JP Morgan warns a Russian default could be next. Sanctions imposed on Russia have significantly increased the likelihood of a Russian government hard currency bond default, JP Morgan emerging market strategist wrote in a note to clients on Wednesday, CNN reported. Russia may have the cash to make its debt payments. The Central Bank of Russia lists a staggering $643 billion of international reserves. However, JP Morgan said sanctions leveled by the United States on Russian government entities, countermeasures within Russia to restrict foreign payments, and the disruption of payment chains present high hurdles for Russia to make a bond payment abroad. Russia has more than $700 million in payments coming due in March, closely with a 30-day grace period, according to JP Morgan. Although Western sanctions on Russia have not restricted the secondary trading of the country's existing bonds, JP Morgan noted that there have been settlement issues with some bonds because the Russian National Settlement Depository has blocked the accounts of Euroclear, a Belgium-based settlement provider. According to Western media, some believe the Kremlin could be setting the stage for an international default to punish the United States and Europe for crushing its economy. Russia, currently the 12th largest economy in the world, last defaulted on its debt in 1998, setting of a crisis that spread overseas. It's not clear how widespread the impact of a default today would be. The 2008 global financial crisis and the onset of the COVID pandemic in 2020 showed how interconnected the world economy and financial system are. However, foreigners held just $20 billion of Russia's dollar debt and ruble-denominated sovereign bonds worth $41 billion at the end of last year, the Financial Times reported, citing Russia's central bank. What are some of the projections that Michael Price, an investment analyst and author at Forbes Georgia, has? Georgi Sakadze will tell us more.
Hi, Eleni. I welcome all our viewers and followers, and many thanks for the attention and feedback for the checkpoints. Yes, you are absolutely right. Mr. Price, Michael Reiner Price, our strategic partner and advisor to whom we really trust due to his precious experience, what he has in relations with various strategic investors. He still considers that it's quite difficult, and it's still difficult to make any kind of prognosis, analysis, or predictions in regards how world economy will definitely react on the risk, which was in reality fixed as the most sensitive risk coming from 2021. Both of us in our conversation and our viewers and followers, including yourself, Eleni, will be in charge, like in a few seconds, that we discussed various scenarios together with Michael, but still we consider that The risk which was fixed from previous year, this risk still remains, but we cannot say how or how world market will react on Ukraine-Russia conflict, war happening in the middle of Europe. So there are still some advices from Mr. Price, and I think they will be more than welcome from our followers. So let's follow this interview.
Michael, again, thank you so much for the very short notice. You are with us, and we'll do our best, both of us, to explain to our viewers and followers what is going on in regards of world economy, what are the trends. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, and my pleasure. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And so, tell me, you know what? While remembering 2021, Ukrainian-Russian conflict was among the top risks, which was issued by all the analysts worldwide. But nobody was wondering or thinking that the worst scenario happening in some minds might be the reality. That's where we stand. It's the 8th and 9th day from the beginning of the war.
And unfortunately, I mean, that is exactly the point. And I think, I mean, that's, again, the lesson for investors here is the following, that, again, as you rightly pointed out, I think it's important to remember that risk often travels non-linearly. Even though people were concerned about the Ukraine and the conflict with Vladimir Putin, I think many people underestimated the real political risk and also the risk of true escalation. If you might recall, apparently on the 24th of February, there was still a lot of hope in the global market that Mr. Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, and Anthony Blinken from the United States could meet in Geneva, Switzerland, to find a peaceful solution. But I think then what the market again was caught by surprise when this was again canceled in the last minute, and then suddenly the bombs went off. I think this is again the true reason and reminder for investors that risk can happen quickly, and often again, as you pointed out, non-linearly, not in a straight line, and that is often the real risk.
Are you trying to highlight that there are some new, I cannot say trends, but the estimation in regards of politics are not so much predictable as it was before? That's what you are trying to point or highlight?
Yes, I would think that is exactly what I try to potentially share with everyone. I think also again, I think the real risk is the risk of escalation, right? I mean, even for example, like even though the tragic situation in the Ukraine, of course, means that the world has to get tough on Russia and Vladimir Putin, right? But if you think about it, if the objective then is to collapse the Russian economy, that doesn't necessarily help the average Russian person either. And again, the true sad thing about all these things is often that the average person who had nothing to do with this is potentially then suffering. That's again also the concerns about sanctions, that sanctions often hit the people who are potentially the most vulnerable. And that potentially could again create negative feedback loops.
Do you think that they have already some sort of okay, let me say so, mutual understanding what kind of sanctions these are in Russia happening? Because in my understanding, Michael, it's not the end. I'm not saying that it's the beginning of the sanctions, but I think that little by little, there will be some more sanctions coming separately from some countries, and also allies like, I don't know, it's going to be EU, I mean, separately like NATO or things like that. But economic sanctions are on their way, and it's maybe it's not the beginning, but it's not the end, definitely. How well Russians do understand that unprecedented sanctions happening right now might relatively not just ruin their daily life, but might weaken their economy so much that it's going to be minus 30 year, as it happened with Iran by the end of 70s last century.
Yes, and again, this is again the unfortunate and tragic reality of these conflicts. And I think what's also important for investors to potentially consider is the relationship of China and the Russian Federation. that increasingly will be a key thing to analyze for investors and also for strategists and analysts to really understand the Russia-China relationship. That, I think, could be a driver of investment returns.
In my understanding, let me interrupt you for a second. Me personally, I was expecting Chinese position more active, but at the same time, they remain pragmatic, very practical, and it doesn't care. But even Kazakhstan, just a few hours ago, they announced that they will keep the neutral position. They will not be neither for Russia nor for Ukraine. At the same time, Chinese refused a few days ago. We used to have a chat on these regards for the further disbursement of the Russian oil things. So what's happening, Michael, in your understanding?
I think it's increasingly that we're potentially seeing a new world order in many different ways, and in many different instances or senses rather. If you think about it, Switzerland historically has been a very neutral country, but now apparently also Switzerland, who has always been a safe haven country and has been neutral among the great powers, has basically decided to increasingly go with the United States and European position against Russia. So again, I think we have to understand that we're moving into a potentially uncharted new world and new geopolitical reality.
Can we say that some sort of new world constitution is on its way to come with new realities, new rules, new laws, new relations, and at the same time, everything is changing for investors as well? Am I right or not?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, for example, even this idea of what is safe money, right? I mean, historically, as everybody might recall, I mean, gold has had the status of safe money for thousands of years. But increasingly, I think the unfortunate developments in the Ukraine have also shown that, unfortunately, you cannot email gold. So when there was an urgent need for funds or donations to the Ukraine, actually cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin suddenly had a very important role in helping the less fortunate people.
Mike, you as an experienced investor and advisor for various funds, are there some sort of untouchable values for investors where they can use their pragmatic predictions during these unprecedented things happening around, while neither me nor yourself, we cannot predict how and when the conflict in Ukraine will be closed?
And look, I think the biggest risk is that risk about sanctions, and also more importantly, the determination of certain nations to enforce these sanctions, and how much they really want to go after everybody in that sense. So that's again the
personally for you, Switzerland or Chinese position was the most surprising, or it was Germany or some other things happening? Because what we see, like both me and you during this period, is unprecedented solidarity happening worldwide. Nobody could expect that sanctions would rather reflect on brands, worldwide brands, and things like happening in sport industry, gambling, culture, I don't know, everything. Yesterday I saw a list of the brands, Mike, who just refused working in Russia. It's Alphabet. It's all of them are there. All of them. They're just making statements every day. The last one is SAP. SAP. They just ignored Russian market as well.
And that again is the question for analysts. I mean, what assumptions are still valid in this new world, and which assumptions have to be completely scrapped and have to be potentially reevaluated?
But for these days, making any kind of prognosis or analysis for the nearest future, the only thing what we can definitely resume, Michael, is that we're facing the new structure of the governing of the world wealth in general. Am I right or not?
Yes, and most probably with that, we will most probably have to have a higher risk premium on equities and other risk assets, and also potentially we most probably will have to expect higher volatility in global financial markets. Because while everybody's trying to figure this out, you will have a lot of volatility in between.
Do you personally expect a global inflation rise in the nearest future?
Yeah, look, I think most likely the level of oil, the price of oil is the real question. I mean, currently we're close to $120 a barrel of oil. The real question is at what level could it really lead to a global recession? If you might recall, just before the subprime crisis in 2008, oil prices went to close to $150, and after that we had a major stock market correction. So again, a lot of these are often psychological levels. At what level is the market reacting?
And the key issue, just to make and settle everything, is to solve the conflict and to stop the war happening in Ukraine. That's the current issue right now, because markets even they cannot recall the issue like COVID is anymore. And I'm very much surprised, because COVID still exists. A virus is among us, but nobody is recalling this issue, Michael, anymore.
Again, it's the level of degree that matters, right? COVID, of course, was also very, very tragic and very difficult for many people around the world, but it's nothing like this, like the Ukraine conflict. So again, it's a question of what is potentially more threatening to everybody.
Michael, thank you so much. And I know that how hard and difficult it is during this period to make any kind of statement, but thank you so much for your analysis, and I'll keep in touch with you, and many thanks from Georgia.
And one more thing, if you permit, if I could add. I mean, again, for investors, again, the key point here is to remember to always consider to have a well-diversified global portfolio. Just give an example. The markets far away from Europe currently are doing the best. For example, countries like Peru, according to Bloomberg data, are now the best performing stock market in the world.
And you see the key success in the diversified portfolio. Now, it's going to be a governmental portfolio, country, or just investor. You see that as much as diversified it's going to be, that's the key issue.
Yes, I mean, look at your country where you are, Georgia. I mean, Georgia and leading stocks in Georgia, like Bank of Georgia, for instance, has been very much dragged down by the Russia and the Ukraine issue, even though potentially it's very different, isolated cases, right? And potentially, if Georgia would join the European Union, that potentially could be very positive for Georgian equities longer term. The short-term reaction was very negative. Everything in Georgia was also coming under selling pressure because it was considered to be in the neighborhood of Russia.
Yeah. Well, we cannot. Unfortunately, we cannot make choice in regards of our neighbors, Michael. And at the same time, what we face is we will use the opportunity right now, together with Moldova and Ukraine, to become the candidates for the European Union. What do you see? You might recall the history of other countries, Mike, how they were well developed. What kind of boost is for the local economy to become the member of such a big ally gathering like EU is?
My understanding is this has been usually positive, and it's very much a convergence factor. And yes, I mean, it should be, because it potentially opens a much larger market and potentially makes everything much smoother. So Ilya, I mean, the opposite of what's now happening with Russia. Russia now is being excluded from the world economy, right? But for example, if smaller nations like Georgia, for instance, would join the European Union and by a larger extent the European economic system, that would open many opportunities for many people in Georgia. So in my opinion, that should be a very strong positive.
I hope we will have same support from EU members, and I hope that Georgia will succeed together with Ukraine and Moldova. Mike, thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We must be optimistic and explore opportunities even in tough times, such as the vision of Ghana's senior minister and senior advisor to the president, Yo Osafo Maafo, who had visited Georgia as per invitation of Georgia Asia-Africa Chamber of Commerce to explore the trade and investment opportunities between the two countries. The checkpoint sat down for brief interviews with the Ghana delegation. Yo Osafo Maafo and the president of Global Africa Trade Advisory Chamber, Dominique Oduro Antwi, whose main focus will be on medical education and some exchange programs in this field, both answered our questions. What is the purpose of your visit?
Well, Madame Catherine is the CEO of the Georgia Asia African Chamber of Commerce. She has been in touch with Ghana for the past 3 years. So we decided to visit, and we came along with the chief executive of the Global African Trade and Chamber of Commerce, who is Dominic Owusu. And we had to find out the best way of promoting business and investment trade between Georgia and Ghana.
Mm-hmm. So did you have the time to meet with high officials here in Tbilisi, or is it on the agenda? What you are looking for, and what are some of the potentials that you are weighing in for Georgia-Ghana cooperation?
We are already looking for private investment in Ghana. We have already had discussions with some, call it wine companies, and we are going to see the Minister of Foreign Affairs tomorrow to have discussions on official levels and also discuss trade and investment. And I think Madam Katerina is arranging all this. So far, so good.
So do you have in mind what could be some of the sectors that, for example, there might be some business interests from Ghana and also from Georgia?
Yes. Ghana is a major producer of a lot of raw materials. We are the biggest producer of cocoa in the world, the number 2. We have a lot of timber. We have a lot of gold. We export all these to Europe and to America already. We don't have much exports and import between Georgia and Ghana, and we want to promote this. Georgia also produces perhaps some of the best wines in the world, and we want to attract some of your imports to Ghana, and we're talking, and whatever we would be able to trade with to make business, we are ready to attract both the government and the private sector to invest in Ghana. We have a lot of raw materials in our country.
Yeah. Why do you think that this is a good time to start?
Well, we think this is a good time to start because we now have a relationship with the Georgia Asia African Trade Office. Mm-hmm. You need to work using other offices. And now that we have a relationship with Madam, the Chief Executive Officer of the Georgia Asia Africa Trade, then now we have the chance to discuss with business, with exports, with investment. So now it's easier to deal with business. You must deal with business through a bureau, through an office. Now we have one. So we are now going to do a lot of talking and discussions.
Yes, my question stemmed from the challenges that the world is facing right now. This is the pandemic, which isn't over yet. This is the war that we are seeing between Russia and Ukraine. So,
well, these are temporary situations. I mean, the pandemic, the COVID-19, is almost over. In Africa, the effect was very little. I mean, Ghana to date, we lost about 1,200 people. And so generally the pandemic, it stopped all businesses for some time, but it is now getting over. We believe that the Ukrainian war is not a permanent future. It's something, in my view, is also going to end very soon. So I think we have to look forward. We have to be optimistic.
So what are some of the potentials that you are looking at and weighing in for the cooperation with Georgia?
Well, I'm looking at various areas like the education, where we can have students from Ghana coming to Georgia on the medical field. There again, we can do an exchange of programs where we can have Ghanaian students coming here and Georgian students also coming to Ghana. And then don't forget, Ghana is one of the most leading countries when it comes to gold. So we're looking out for the opportunity to expand business in terms of gold, because we have very good quality gold. In the world, we are the #1. And we're looking at how we can be able to do business in that sector as well. And that comes to the point of trade, where what you have and we don't have, we can trade with it in Ghana. What we have and you don't have here, we can trade with it in Ghana. I was happy to see the technological park which is something that Ghana is also going to start doing, because we need to bring up the youth in a certain way where they will be self-sufficient. They will not be dependent on government or other people for work opportunities. So we're also looking at the area of technology and concept development. Yeah.
Wonderful. So what will be your main message while talking with the officials later on tomorrow?
Well, basically it's going to be, we should see ourselves as collaborators and not competitors. You understand? We live in a world where you don't know the next day what will happen to you. So we should rather think of collaborating more from Europe to Africa, Africa to Europe, and the rest of the world. And when you do that, you have a very brighter future for our own youth. You understand? We should think of the youth more than ourselves. You understand? That's what we should. We should be able to think of the youth. The youth are the future leaders of the country, not us. We will go. Our time will be up soon. So we should be able to build a very formidable country with the youth that can promote and sustain whatever our leaders came to start with.
Georgia and Africa are not that close to each other. So what will be some of the challenges that you keep in mind while talking with
Yeah,
Georgia?
Initially the challenges will be there. Basically any organization, even when you're working, if you don't have challenges, you're not refined. Sometimes you need to go through the fire to become better. Now, the challenges we may have has got to do with, oh, this is Africa, oh, this is Europe. But the question is, so what? They're all human beings, they can still work, they can still do business. I always tell people that although we have 1,000 miles journey begins with a step, you have to make that step. If you don't move, nothing gets done. So the first thing we have done is to move by coming to Georgia. Also Georgia, Katharina came to us in Ghana. We met in UAE for the past 3 years, and it's been good. So once we have taken the step to come to Georgia, it's an open door. We've taken the step. So whatever it is, we should be able to fulfill our objective. But challenges will always come. But it's up to the one who's tougher to go through the challenges.
We were just talking about medical education, and this sector, the medical sector, is currently under the reforming process where big changes have been announced by the government, some of which will be affecting the business sector as well by changing some of the rules of the game on the market. However, the hottest topic on the table today is to make medicine cheaper for Georgia's consumers, and one of the ways to do that is expected to be the opening of Turkey's market for Georgia's importers. Let us listen to what one of the distinguished players of the Georgian pharma market has to say.
Yes, and another issue, Elena, personally for you and for our viewers and followers as well, they're all interested, I mean, fellow citizens of our great Republic of Georgia, that government initiated various amendments within the legislation for the import of medicines in this country, and you're personally very well aware about the possibility to import pharmacy medicines from our south neighbor Turkey Republic. So I asked Kati Ghazmazashvili. Kati is CEO of one of the huge pharmacy network in Georgia called Pharma Depot, and we just had in the Forbes studio just a few days ago, and I really love to update your viewers and followers in this regards how well the new new import scheme works after Prime Minister announcement in regards of more affordable medicines coming from the Republic of Turkey.
Pharma Depot was the first in its industry to respond to the war in Ukraine. Our thoughts are with Ukraine right now. Tell us a few words about what you did in this regard. How did you do it, and do you plan to make it a permanent thing as the war continues, which will hopefully be over soon.
Seeing what was happening in Ukraine was extremely overwhelming. All of us had this inner urge to help and be as productive as possible. Therefore, on the second day of the war, we decided to issue pharmaceutical and humanitarian vouchers for Ukrainian citizens in Georgia, as well as send humanitarian aid to people in Ukraine. Today, with the help of the Red Cross, humanitarian aid will be sent to the children. It was extremely difficult for us to watch the footage of the children and realize the situation in which they are today. We have also set up special boxes in our pharmacies where anyone who makes a purchase can donate what they want to send to Ukraine, and we will transport all of this with the help of Red Cross.
So an effective cooperation has been established with Red Cross, right?
Yes, it is very important to partner with them. They really help us a lot because without them, we cannot solve logistical issues.
The first batch of imported medicines from Turkey. What we have achieved with this change? What is the situation at the moment? How do you value your customers' interest in all of this?
Yes, there was a very significant change in the legal framework which allowed us, Georgian pharmaceutical companies, to import medicines from Turkey. Previously, this restriction existed. Turkey was not on the list of countries recognized by our legislation. Consequently, we can already import these medications. We started these negotiations immediately. It was very important that as soon as we were consulted by the state, we immediately started preparing for this process. The import of medicines is associated with many bureaucracies. Therefore, there was a lot of preparations involved. The distributor himself must have the appropriate balance to make purchases, which is very difficult. As soon as we started the negotiations, then there was already a legislative change, and we introduced these medicines instantly. We're talking about 32 medicines. These are medications for chronic diseases. Consumers are very sensitive to them because they are actually in everyday use.
From the listed medicines that Pharmadepot has already brought to Georgia, what is the main difference between them and the ones here?
It is very important to say that these medicines we imported from Turkey are produced for the Turkish market specifically. However, we had medicines on our own market produced for the European market. I'm talking about exact analogs. It is very important that the manufacturer for these medicines is the same. The difference is in the packaging. For example, there are Turkish labels on medicines from Turkey because it is produced for that particular market and consumer. The difference between the prices is significant. In many cases, medicines imported from Turkey are twice cheaper. We want to emphasize that we give the customer an alternative, a choice. They can choose between the existing medicines and those imported from Turkey.
How did the consumer react to this change? You personally had active communication with the customer. Did this communication take place, and how did it result?
One word was enough to make it a signal to users of these medicines. We even had queues in pharmacies. It is a very important change for them. However, I note here that the sale of the same European medicines has not stopped. So again, we gave the customers a choice. And I think that's exactly what our Pharmadepot business is all about, giving customers a choice.
Probably what Pharmadepot needs to do for a long time is to provide information to consumers.
I agree. We see our role in providing information. We're happy to do this because in general, the role of pharmacy field is to make the patient, the average consumer, well aware of what the choice is and according to what they should make the choice.
My last question is about the future perspective Pharmadepot. The company Pharmadepot does not stop buying, ordering medicine, and your relationships with distributors are getting deeper and deeper. What is necessary for the continuity of the process for the customer to be the most satisfied?
A lot of work is done by our procurement service, which is in constant contact with the Turkish side to find even more alternatives. We're now talking about 32 medications, which is not a small amount, but we want it to be even more. For this, there is a continuous close communication with the Turkish side. We added 3 more pharmacies in Tbilisi. We have 13 pharmacies across Georgia, 5 of them in Tbilisi. The goal of the additional pharmacies is to cover more neighborhoods as well. We would very much like to add regional pharmacies as soon as possible, as there are many requests for this. I also have to note that our pharmacies have the freedom to request the demanded medicines, and we provide them with on-site transportation.
The checkpoint is drawing to an end, and I would like to leave you off with the report that we have made for you from the main stage today for Georgia, that's the Parliament of Georgia. I told you in the headlines what decisions have been made inside this building, but all that because people keep standing outside the building for over a week in support of Ukraine and Ukrainian people, demanding from the government the open, straightforward and systemic reassurance that it stands in line with the West by Ukraine and against Russia in this decisive moment for the world. We will meet on Sunday. Till then, check us out on Forbes.g and BM.g and let dignity guide you, especially in these tough times. This is day 7 of the permanent supports towards Ukraine that has hit Georgia's main avenue here in front of the Georgian parliament in support of Ukraine and Ukrainian people. Right now, behind me, you see how volunteers are trying to pack the things that they have volunteered for the Ukrainian people. What you are reading on that sign over there is the Humanitarian Help Center for the Ukraine, and you can read there, Peace for Ukraine.
This is the bare minimum we can do for the Ukrainian people, and whole world should know that we are brothers, and the war is really devastating, and it is hard, and this is really the least we can do for now.
So that's how it looks from over here. What kind of feeling is that when you're standing there with the big mic in your hands and you see all these people permanently? When the checkpoint will be airing, it will be 9th day of the full permanent protest. What kind of feeling is that?
So yeah, it's a mixed feeling because at the same time you feel profoundly proud because Georgian people chose to speak up when their government chose to be silent, and at the same time you kind of feel a deep shame because of our special relations with Ukraine. They well, it is argued that we have a port in city, right? And the reason the port and Poti is under Georgian jurisdiction is because of Ukrainian interference back in 1993. When we had this war with Russia, proxy war with Russia, with separatists. Then it was 2008 when President Yushchenko stood right here, maybe right here. Yeah, when the Russian tanks were in, I don't know, 20 kilometers, not from the capital, from Rustaveli Avenue, from the place he was standing, with all the Eastern European leaders. And well, then there is this Georgian panache of helping out these friends and even enshrined in the Night in the Pander's Skin in famous Shota Rustaveli poem when Avtandili, the main character, leaves his will. And he explains that, okay, I'm saying no to this precious life of being king, married to king's daughter and everything, because I have my friend to save. And this is very deeply engraved into, like, it's not just subject of schools. It's just Georgians may not have much, but at least we have Shota Rustaveli building a role model of Georgia, right? And then there we have a PM who says that, who repeats Russian propaganda, saying that the West abandoned Ukraine, that sanctions don't work, and so on and so on.
And he translates this to his people, that this is pragmatic and national interest. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I will not be...
We saw what these people have to say to that.
We saw what they have to say. I'm not very original in that idea. It goes back to Churchill. Like, when you have a choice between freedom and security, and you choose the security, you will lose both freedom and security. And it was not a choice against security, to be frank, right? Because nobody expected him to be very brave and join sanctions. Okay, we could be realist and totally understand that, like, 94% of grain comes from Russia, and now if we say, okay, we close the borders, well, then the next question is, how do you bake the bread, right? But nobody expected him to be so, like, brave and, like, as brave as Great Britain, but he could be at least as brave as the president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, and support, give the words of support, words of condolence, and nobody asked him whether Georgia is going to join sanctions or not.
That was his position.
Yeah, he chose to speak up about that in the circumstances like this.
We're feeling awful because our friends, our relatives, our brothers and sisters need to hide in basements right now because Russians drop bombs onto our cities, claiming that it's just a special military operation, but in fact it's war right now. And unfortunately now we have problems with food in Kyiv. There is no food in markets, and it's quite difficult right now for us to be here because we can't get home, and we need to stay here and protesting every day, just being afraid about our friends and relatives. Are they okay?
The message we want to say to the Ukrainian people firstly is that we are not our government, we are better than our government. It is what Volodymyr Zelensky tweeted, and we are fully in line with it because our government did absolutely nothing in order to help or support Ukraine, and we decided to be vocal when government chose to stay silent. To be honest, I couldn't even believe my eyes when I saw this many people in the streets protesting for 8 days.
On the first call.
Yes, on the first call. Yes, and it shows the world that Georgian people have distanced themselves from Russia. We know what Russian aggression means. We've seen Russian aggression in 2008, but it didn't stop there. We are living under ongoing creeping occupation. Our citizens are getting kidnapped from our so-called borders. They are getting arrested or shot. So yeah, we know what Ukrainians are going through right now.
Well, I'm texting to my dad and to my mother, who are really in basement just now in Kharkiv, and I'm telling them that there are so many people in Georgia who are trying to help us, and I hope they are happy to see that and happy to know that they are not alone.
I'm here to support Ukraine, of course, and this means also to support Georgia and to support peace and freedom in the world. Georgia's economy, unfortunately, was more and more integrated with Russian economy recently, and I was very much against of this, and I was always saying, I was writing about this, that Russia is not a normal partner, and they will be using this integration for their political things. So unfortunately this will start very soon. This close ties with Russia will destroy some of our sectors. It's very painful, I understand, but we need to diversify our economy as much as possible to not to be dependent on Russia.
Yes, and that's one tool where we can fight it.
Yeah, absolutely. If Ukraine fails, then more hooliganism will be spread in the world, and there are more events around already, and we can expect that there will be no peace, no freedom in the world if we don't stop this very soon.
Economic sanctions are not the thing which will take an immediate effect, unfortunately. But I hope that their analysts, their financial managers will calculate the things and make a right decision, because it probably would be really catastrophic for Russia, not only for financial markets of Russia, but also for cultural interconnections with Europe, with all the Western world. So we see the rhetoric that they will survive even in this case. They will reorient to change the direction of their context toward Asia. But to be honest, I don't think that it's a right way for Russia.
The least I can do, I will just tell you, Slava Ukraini, Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Героям слава.
Thank you.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.